The Third Side of the Coin, brought to you by XCaliber Coaching and Consulting.
Hello, and welcome to the Third Side of the Coin podcast, episode 7, Finding Meaning. My name is Aberle, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Tim Wong.
Hi, Alex. Great to see you again. Hope you had a great week.
Wow, Tim, what a topic we chose for today, finding meaning. So many people in this life go through it feeling desperate to find that deep sense of purpose and connection to something bigger. Some are feeling that something is missing, and some are questioning why they aren't passionate about something like others. Others want to make a big impact on the world. So why are we as humans in the constant search for meaning?
Great question, Alex. There's two parts to it. There's purpose and meaning. When we look for purpose, it is to be happy. In order for us to make sense of our happiness, we need to value it. And that's where meaning comes in. Meaning allows us to value our happiness. So the work we do, we find meaning in it. And that meaning can be valued. And that is how we measure our happiness. And that's at the very beginning of our journey. But as you move further in your journey, as a leader or as an individual, you begin to realize that you do not need meaning for your purpose. You can be happy. That's it.
It became almost a fashionable kind of statement of finding happiness or finding purpose. But what you're saying is a bit opposite or contradictory to what the pop culture is looking for. Can you give me maybe some type of practical experience and walk me through what exactly do you mean?
My purpose is, say, for example, to bring thought leadership to high performing and high potential individuals. But why is it my purpose? Because I find some meaning in it, right? And what is that meaning? Well, that meaning is that I'm able to allow influences to become even better influences. Now, why do I want to do that? One, it gives me validation as an individual for myself. And when I start looking into how it gives me validation, as I peel it all away, it creates a sense of happiness in me. Everything we do in our work, at the end of it, there is a sense of gratification, of achievement that we want to do on the positive side. But what is it that at the very end we get? It is that sense of happiness. Accomplishment is the sense of happiness.
It has been said that the two most important days we have in life are the day we're born and the day we discover why we were born. Most people would agree that when we are unsure about what our purpose in life is, it can become increasingly more difficult to keep going. And most people try to think their way in and out of the challenges that life throws at them. Our intellect could get in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a certain amount of thinking in it because you need to self-reflect, right? And then as you begin to self-reflect more on it, you start to wonder, well, what is the purpose in what I'm doing? You know, and it's an onion. You keep peeling it back. And when you get to this topic, I mean, even this process we're having now, we are uncovering each layer. Now, how we unpeel the onion, it depends on you as an individual. You might be so skilled that you can unpeel an onion just in one go, or you might be so unskilled that you break pieces off. But at the same time, there are tears that comes with it, which are the challenges and also the ecstasy that comes in unpeeling your quest. Now, with the very analogy I'm giving of why when we start coming to more existential discussion about our purpose and meaning, that we can mostly use analogies, is that it's such a both an emotional and a rational thing. Rational, we're trying to make sense of it. Emotional is that purpose, right? When you're bringing both together, it's very hard to integrate it except through an analogy. An analogy is like a story. As you interact with some very accomplished leaders, they always tell you stories. Even the ancient way of instruction was through storytelling. It was through the oral tradition before script became a norm for everyone. And so it's something that's very ancient in us. It's so primal. Because if we didn't have purpose, would you get up in the morning?
Being inspired by what you do, motivated by making a difference in others, connected with other people in a meaningful way, are all far greater rewards than in some cases, people are thinking about meaning. What I've seen in a lot of successful leaders, for example, they spend a majority of their life chasing after materialistic possessions, and that's where they see the meaning, but they still do come up empty what they thought the meaning was, or even the reason why they're doing some things. It just became meaningless. So I guess my question here is why, and is it relevant for leaders to find meaning?
Yes, it's important for leaders to find meaning at first so that they're able to benchmark or value what actions they're doing. If you didn't have meaning in what you're doing, then the ownership that you have over it will not be there in completeness. And we all know that if you don't take ownership of anything or something, then your performance would not be at its full potential.
If I were to meet with the leader who is absolutely successful when it comes to materialistic possessions, but they're seeing that some aspects of their life are dissipating, in some cases I see not only losses of their own happiness, but also the impact that they're making on uh, family, their teams. They're attaching that purpose for what they do without truly understanding that there got to be the meaning for what they do.
Meanings will always change as your life expands or evolves. It's how you look at it. So one of the examples I got from when I was in college, one day our lecturer came in and he brought in a can of beans, which was, say this was a can of beans. So he did it like that, because what do you see? And we said a can. And then he said, then what do you see here? And we said, it's a can of beans. And he goes, yeah, but then what are you actually saying? Then someone said that you're looking at this shape. And then someone said you're looking at this shape. He said it's one and the same thing, but it depends on how you look at it and how you're able to process it. That is meaning. That is how it evolves. The other thing about meaning is also it has different values for the individual. That is what meaning is. Another example I can give is if I held a bottle of water to someone in the desert, it is life-saving. But if I held that same bottle of water to someone in a tsunami, they'll see it as life-taking because water for them is associated with death. What gives the person value is that meaning that they have. That is what will drive them. There is nothing wrong with material possession. It's all part of the rite of passage, because the more you accumulate, the more it validates the power that you have based on your income. I mean, it's a very basic way of breaking it down. As you progress further, you realize that there's also a limitation in how much you can consume. For the younger audience, it's still very, very conceptual. But as you grow older, physically and mentally, you do begin to notice that in the natural state of things, you begin to slow down, you eat less, you do whatever's less, and then you start to realize, is what I'm consuming, whether in possession or whatever it is, I mean, is that still defining me of who am I? Is that my purpose? So these are life questions that there is no answer to. And if someone can give you the answer, then, you need to take it with a pinch of salt. At the end of the day, it's only you who can answer it yourself, because it is your life. But you also need to first be able to differentiate between your purpose in life and what it is that gives you meaning to allow you to achieve that purpose.
Love it. And it all does come down to limitations. And another limitation is time. You mentioned getting older age-wise or mature with age, hopefully. But time is really the most valuable commodity, especially when we're younger. We don't necessarily treat it as such. It's important not only what we're doing, but also who we spend that time with. Because I think going back to what you said about meaning changes over time, and values are quite, values that we assign to a certain, let's say, subject. But it's the same with the relationships. If we are in the position where we spend time with people who drain your energy, then we just limited our timing that we are given, which is always going to be finite, because it is the existential reality. We're born and then we die. That's like one lifetime span. As we're searching for meaning, those who we're surrounding ourselves with are also going to contribute to our meaning.
I mean, if we bring it back to like our work environment, whatever we do, there must be some sort of reason why we're doing it. And that reason is part and partial to the meaning that we have. Now, the quality of that value or meaning depends on your end result of what you're trying to achieve. So say, for example, the way I build relationships is that I look for it in the long term. So I see the human behind it rather than the person trying to fulfill that role. Yes, that person needs to fulfill a certain role because in the first place, they wouldn't be in that role if they didn't have that skills. The big question is, how do you make it meaningful for them so that they will apply all their learnings and their skills and experience so that it supports your team? It also supports in their own growth. It's a two-way process then. Then you find me, as a manager, I find meaning in my actions because it allows other people to grow. That is my purpose in life, because I want other people to grow around me. Because when I see other people grow around me, I feel a sense of accomplishment, of contentment, and that brings me happiness. If you asked me this when I was first starting out in my early 20s, what gave me meaning is how much I came under budget, right? What gave me meaning is how much more I got from that budget. What gave me meaning is how fast I turn it around without caring about relationships, right? But now when I move further with the experience I have, what gives me meaning is at the end of the day, has that individual fully expressed their potential? Because you still get to that goal, but you can get to that goal with that individual fully on board.
It could be a scientific perspective as much as it is the spiritual perspective. When we are alive, we are interconnected. Our meaning in a way is part of someone else's meaning. That's actually probably a super big point that a lot of times even experienced leaders are failing. And I don't necessarily think that we look at this life and how attached and connected we are.
We can look at the world like the periodic table in chemistry. There's so many elements out there, and if we look at every element, that's what the whole world is made up of. So it's very physical. On another level, when you start progressing further, it's your expansion of your knowledge becomes like that of a quantum physicist. And what the quantum physicists see is not necessarily the chemistry periodic table, that's part of it. But he or she sees beyond that and realizes that this entire creation is just a set of sound waves, or particle waves that gives the way I look, my color, and everything around me. It's that shift in perception, and what you just shared just then is that once you begin to realize everyone around you, your supporters, your detractors, your worst critics, all give you meaning.
To hear more, go to part 2.